Hello and welcome. This is Rooflemonger and this is Gill Tips and Tricks. So as always with these styles of guides, there's going to be a lot of topics covered from more, basic stuff to more advanced level stuff and just, a lot of points in between. So if you're looking to skip around, there will be timestamps in the video description if you want to skip around to various points of the video. Otherwise, hey, let's just start at the start and let's start with the basics. So starting at the start here, let's go over the basic move set. So first up we have Cryo and Pyrokinesis. These are its basic fireballs. So Pyrokinesis is quarter circle forward when you attack, so light goes straight across, medium a little bit of an anti-air angle, and heavy a much more strict anti-air angle. So the difference between these, obviously besides the fact they're ice and fire, right? The fire versions travel much faster and do more damage. So as you can see here, the basic fire does 70, basic ice does 50, but the ice does travel a lot slower, and that is to your benefit sometimes, as you can easily, kind of go behind it and travel behind the slow fireball. And much the same as, say, if you're fighting like a Jump Happy Rashid, you do more anti-air angle one here, it just sits on the screen for a while, right? So it eats up a lot of airspace. Now, besides just how they basically work, and once again here, generally speaking, fire, more damage, faster, ice, less damage, slower. They also will inflict an elemental state on the EX versions. We'll go over the elemental states, a little bit later on here. But suffice to say, fire inflicts the fire elemental state, and ice inflicts the ice elemental state, as you can see there. So we'll go over that a little bit later on, but the ice and fire states are obviously a very big deal to the character. Next up here, we have the Ice and Fire Cyber Lariat. So quarter circle forward, quarter circle back, and one of your kicks. So light, medium, or heavy. And what these affect is both distance traveled and damage done. So the light one comes out very quick and does the least amount of damage, and heavy one is obviously the slowest, but does the most and travels the most amount on the screen. And once again here, that's quarter circle forward. You do quarter circle back, you'll do the ice versions. Now the ice versions here, as with the fireballs here, say this is the fire version, 80 damage, ice version, 60 damage. So the ice does less damage, but does inflict more stun. So if you're definitely closer to inflicting, a dizzy on the enemy, the ice versions are the way to go. Screw the damage, take the stun. And just like the fireballs, the EX versions will inflict the various elemental states. So if you're an EX ice, well then, hey, they're frozen. EX fire, then they're in the flame state. The final of the special moves is the Moonsault Knee Drop. This is done with the Dragon Punch motion and one of your kicks. So the kick determines the distance. So say if I do the light kick version right here, I, for the most part, stayed nearly in place, right? Versus if I do the heavy kick version, I land and hit the enemy. Also, just to quickly note here, hitting the enemy, this move is very safe on blocks, only -2, and it's -2 with a little bit of pushback. So you don't have to worry about getting thrown right away either, right? Maybe don't do it against Zangief, because he can definitely still get you at that range. But for the most part, this is a very safe move. Also, the EX version. Now, on top of the stuff you'd normally expect from the EX version, does more damage, has more combo potential to be sure, you can also guide it. So say I did the base EX version right here. I travel roughly this far. Now, if I hold backwards, I travel just a little less far, and if I hold forwards, I travel quite a bit further out. So you have effective control over the direction of the move, on top of having all the usual EX properties. So one thing to do about this move really quick here, it's good to bait just, Dragon Punch happy people, anti-air happy people, because once again, the light version kind of stays in place. So roughly this distance, if you have a person who's ready to pull the trigger and they think, they're going for the heavy knee, you can just do this, get the reaction, they whiff, and then punish city. Just a little thing to keep in mind. Now, Gill also has quite a few command normals, and these are pretty important and you're gonna want to learn them, so just to go over them pretty quick here. First we have an overhead, that's forward and heavy. So this overhead, as all overheads, must be block standing, and with all overheads, especially as of the Champion Edition patch, they're all pretty negative on block, so better watch out, but still, it's decently quick for what it wants to be. Also, very more importantly, it is keyed to the ice element. Once again, we'll talk about the elements in a minute here, but just keep in mind it is keyed to the ice element. Now, on to the next command normal, let's talk about the Quarrel Kick. So Quarrel Kick is effectively your longest range normal. It's basically, if you're in like a poke war, this is the poke you're going to want to be using because nothing else really has the range. And this is also key to the fire element. Next up, we have Cryo Rise, back heavy kick, and this looks like an anti-air, and hey, it is. We'll talk about that later on as an anti-air as well. And also, it's pretty good for combos for Retribution bait, and we'll talk about the Retribution mechanic in a minute. But yeah, all-around solid move, and we have 2 target combos. We have Light Medium Punch, this guy right here, so they automatically chain into each other. And if you have maybe not the strongest combo starter, say like a stand light kick or something, that's pretty decent to combo into. And also down, light kick, down, medium kick, target combo, this guy here. Now, this is not special cancelable, so you can't go this into, you know, a fireball or something, unfortunately. If you want to do that, you know, you're better served with your other buttons. But still, if you're just looking for a quick little confirm here, especially, say, going to a trigger, it's pretty decent for that. Also, his super move, Seraphic Wing. Very pretty looking, very cool and cinematic, to be sure, absolutely. One thing to note about it is it always resets you back to neutral. So if you are in the corner and you're hoping for like some sick setup or something after the super, it's not going to happen because you will always reset the neutral no matter what. So it's basically, don't think of it as like a set play Oki thing. Just take your damage and there you go. So let's talk about the elemental states. So they are super, super, super key to everything you want to do with a Gill, right? And they also lead to the Retribution system, which we'll talk about right after this. But the elemental states themselves, they do stuff and they are important. So once again, you can inflict them with any EX move, or if you are in trigger state, certain moves will change, which we'll also talk about in a minute. But so let's take the basic fire state. All right, so the enemy is on fire now, right? And if you have a little look at the health bar above, you might actually notice now the enemy is taking damage. It's not a lot of damage, to be sure, right? But they are taking a little bit of damage. So the fire state does inflict damage over time on top of, you know, just you hitting them with a move, right? And obviously once they're in the fire state, then you can trigger Retribution, all that, which we'll talk about. And now the ice state. So this is a mechanic that already exists in the game with Colin, but still, let's just show you here. So now you might look at the enemy's stun bar up here. So their stun bar is now frozen. And every time I hit them, give them a good old kick here or whatever move you want to do here, that stun bar is still frozen. And this will not go away at all. So right here, say I back up, right? This doesn't time out. The stun bar is going to stay frozen and stay frozen and stay frozen up until one of 2 things happen. Either you hit them with the opposite element and trigger the Retribution effect, so like this, or the enemy hits you. So you can basically just chill, like no pun intended. You can just hold back here, and if the enemy is near stun and they are frozen, you don't have to commit to anything at all. The enemy will stay in this state until they hit you or you explode with the Retribution effect. So you can basically find yourself in a situation where you want to hold back, have the enemy overcommit, go crazy, because obviously they want this out, because if they're close to stun, that usually means you're close to losing a round, right? So Gill has all manner of projectiles and all that kind of stuff, right? He can control the screen very well, so he can let the enemy do just basically stupid stuff. So yeah, the elemental state's very key. So the Retribution system on its most basic level is this. If they're on fire, hit them with ice. And if they're iced up, hit them with fire. Simple, easy peasy, right? This is where a lot of his combo potential comes from. So say if we had the same basic thing here, I hit him with fire, all of a sudden, that's a Juggalo K state I can follow up, right? This is extra important because Gill does not have crush counters at all. Like, not even sweep crush counter. He is the only character in the game that doesn't have the crush counter system working for him. So you need this in place of crush counters to get a lot of your setups and a lot of your damage, right? And thankfully, it's easy enough to work with, right? Say they're already in an elemental state, and we're just in neutral, right? And I see, okay, you're on fire. Then I'll hit you with an ice attack off my basic hit confirm instead of going for fire normally. And then all of a sudden, we're juggled okay, and I can get a follow-up, right? So in neutral, that's fine. And it's easy enough to force it to in combos. So say we take a basic hit confirm here, right? Like stand medium, crouch medium. Okay, we'll do EX Fireball after that. And after that EX Fireball, we'll V-trigger cancel, and we'll follow up. Oh, there's a Retribution, combo out, that kind of stuff, right? We can continue the combo from there, right? So we use the Retribution to get our back heavy kick, which is normally not something you can combo afterwards. But with the Retribution blowback, we now have enough time to combo afterwards. So I can do something like this and go right into down heavy and keep comboing. So that is the power of the Retribution system. Now, I did also mention, hey, no crush counters for Gill, right? So how do you get hard knockdowns? Because, hey, you know, this ain't quite cutting the butter. You know, there's no crush counter attached, so I can't get a hard knockdown. Well, it's once again tied to the Retribution system. So if they're on fire, hit them with that overhead. That is a hard knockdown, no quick get-ups. If they are frozen, hit them with a sweep. Once again, a hard knockdown. So the Retribution system will also give you the hard knockdowns you need for setups. So let's talk his V skills. First up here, we have the Comet. So the Comet in and of itself is probably not the fanciest projectile you've ever seen in a Street Fighter game, right? It starts a little slow, but it's important on several levels here. First and foremost, you can control the distance. So we can control it being close. And if you just hit it by itself with no direction here, just as neutral. If we hold forward here, hey, full screen. And hey, it inflicted an elemental state, which we can then use to get a Retribution, right? So one of the main uses you're going to be using for this is less in neutral, but sometimes, then we'll talk about that later. But you can get a knockdown, and just on their knockdown, okay, well, hey, deal with this, right? And it's going to land on your head. And once the projectile's on screen, you can hit him. It doesn't really matter. So if like we do this here, and we switch over the character and say we'll just do whatever recording. Okay, it's on screen. It doesn't go away. So if the enemy hits you after the projectile is already on the screen, the projectile will clock them in the head, save your day, and you can recombo it from there. Now, you might notice here, okay, so right now it's inflicting the fire element, right? You do get to choose, but it's based on your V trigger. So I have it set to V trigger 1 right now. So if I have them set to V trigger 2, it is now an ice-based projectile. So whether or not it inflicts ice or fire is totally based on your V trigger itself. That is the one thing that matters, so it's not like a button combination or anything you press. What V trigger you have affects the element of this V skill. V skill 2 is effectively a third strike style parry. Not one-to-one, but as close as you're going to get in this game anyways. So what it is, it activates on parry on frame 2, not frame 1. So if you get like a true meaty or something and you mash it on wake up, it's not going to save you. But say we have the enemy just attack us here. So just, you know, basic string you've seen Karen do a million times. So we can just go, okay, and then parry, and then punish, right? The recovery of the parry is much faster than, say, like reuse. So you can just do it and just punish right away. It's not even really an issue. Now, one thing to note about the parry here, it's not a catch-all. It does come in 2 flavors. So mids, highs, all that, that is the standard V skill. It'll catch all that. And true low attacks, like this, you know, you have to do down and V skill. So if you are fighting an enemy that might mix, you know, something between like a crouch light punch, crouch light kick, crouch light punch would be gotten with a standing one because this is a mid, and the crouch light kick would be the crouching one. And if you pick wrong, hey, you're going to get smacked, right? So it's not quite a catch-all, but as far as it goes, man, very strong. Can catch a lot of brain-dead stuff very easily, like, you know, Bison Devil reverses, or just, you know, really dumb jump-ins, where maybe you're not at the right angle to get a good anti-air in or something. You know, fireballs, hey, free V-skill, or sorry, V-gauge generation, all that kind of stuff. Anything that's really obvious, this shuts down for free. When otherwise it might be pressure you just would have to hold on to normally. You can say, nah, I can just parry it, punish you, we're out, right? So, as far as defense goes, Gill's defense isn't the best right now, I can tell you. He has no invincible reversal. He has 1-3 framer, which is this, which isn't the best range. So, yeah, when it comes to defense, this active defense is your best line of defense, right? So, it'll get you through a lot of just, you know, dumb stuff that is awkward to deal with in a lot of situations. And I highly suggest it, honestly. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff with the Comet, to be sure. But in the end, this gives you defensive options when you don't have really that much to begin with. So V skill 2 gets my thumbs up. So now let's talk the V triggers. So V triggers for Gill are incredibly important, and yes, they are important for everybody, to be sure. But Gill becomes really online once he picks his trigger. So V trigger 1 is fire, V trigger 2 is ice, and before we even get to the moves of them, they turbocharge their element. So if we're in V trigger 1 fire, all of a sudden, regular fireball becomes a big fireball. and inflicts the elemental state without me having to burn bar. And more to the point, you can't even burn bar. It won't let you do the X version. Much the same deal here. The lariats. So basic lariat will also inflict its element. And you cannot EX it either, just so you know. So it'll always inflict the element. So real quick here, if we switch to V trigger 2, Ice of Doom here. So same deal. The ice becomes turbocharged, becomes much bigger, much more difficult to jump over to be sure here too. Inflicts the ice state, and same with the lariat here, will inflict the ice state, don't need to burn bar. So off the bat here, once again, combo potential immediately goes up, because it's going to be much easier to inflict the elemental states just in neutral by itself, because if you get tagged by any old fireball, oh hey, you're in an elemental state, so now I can easily go, alright, well then, Retribution, combo out, all that kind of fun stuff. But now let's talk about what do they do. So what do the triggers do besides, you know, just turbocharging the element they're in, right? Well, if you are in V trigger 1, you gain access to a new move. So if you hit heavies together here, you'll do this big old uppercut, and this is good, like juggle okay, so you can get like a lot of combo potential as well. And also you get a wicked projectile here that goes full screen, which also inflicts the element of fire. So when you are in trigger here, this big projectile, you can aim it. So you can aim it close, you can aim it medium, and you can aim it far. So you have to hit down, back, down, or down, forward. And also, the uppercut part of the trigger can be canceled into the projectile as well. So if you're just looking to really burn a lot of extra damage, because you can get a lot at the end of a combo, to say the least here, because that's a serious chunk right there. Yeah, there'll be scaling and all that still, but you inflict the element fire, you get a little damage over time as well. And yeah, so basically, it's just all about the damage. You can end a lot of combos with this and just chunk out, inflict the element, and just go from there, because once they're in fire, you can bully in the corner, especially with the light ice shot, as it's one of the best things in the corner, and we'll talk about that later as well. But yeah, so just damage, damage, damage is the name of the game. Now, the ice version, on top of obviously turbocharging the ice, gives you access to 2 special moves as well. You get the big old rhyme spike here, and just so you know, obviously inflicts the ice element, so it freezes a stun bar. You can end combos with it. It's not the most damaging thing in the world. What it is, though, is a wicked poke. So his footsies is all right, but it's not Titanic, right? Like, he's not going to have bigger buttons than Dalsum or Abigail, right? But when you have this up, people have to respect you a bit more, because the range of some of your better moves here, you can totally attack from outside of the range of those moves. So we have that, and we also have the ice trap. So this is also aimable. You can hit down, back, down, forward, or just, you know, regular old down, just how we do it. And this is basically your set play / Oki thing. So it doesn't explode right away. And because it doesn't explode right away, we can make all sorts of mix-ups and cross-ups, which we'll talk about later. But it also creates a good chunk of hit stun just right off the bat. So it's also very good for combos. So we see it hit. Oh, cool. Well, we're going to stand heavy, which triggers Retribution. And from that, we can just, you know, combo out. And stuff like this, right? So the active part of this is definitely more of a set play thing versus V-Trigger 1 just being more of a I'll just take my damage kind of thing. They both have their uses. But in my opinion, I think a lot of people's opinions, the power of the set play traps and all that kind of stuff definitely outweighs just getting a little bit extra damage from fire. Now, to quickly talk about a few notable normals here for Gill. Gill doesn't have the best buttons in the world, I'm very sorry to tell you. But what he does have, he can make work, right? First up, for a basic poke, for the most part, stand medium is going to be the one you want. It has the most effective range of his quicker buttons. Now, it's certainly not the longest range in the game, but from this far, it's still better than, you know, some people get, right? Coral kick, forward heavy. So this one has quite a bit more range than stand medium. Now, obviously, it is slower to boot, but if you are in that footsies war, this is basically your longest effective range normal, so this one is the one you want to keep in mind as well. Now, anti-airs. So he has 2 real ones here. He has down heavy, which is slower and will get your head kicked in sometimes if you're not too quick. And you have back heavy, which is a much better anti-air pretty much all around. So when the enemy's jumping at you, back heavy is lightning quick. It's only 9-frame startup, just so you know. And it can just totally rip people out of the air pretty much for free. The one thing about it is it doesn't have a lot of forward movement. It's actually incredible at ripping people just like directly above you, which a lot of anti-airs kind of have trouble with sometimes. But when they're a little further out, then you might want to use your down heavy instead, just so you know. But once again, that's the problem with the down heavy right there, is it trades a lot. But yeah, back heavy goes into EXs very well, as you can see right there. And if it goes in EXs very well, man, basically your combo conversions are going to be crazy. Basically, don't jump at Gill. As you can see there, I ripped over a 30-year life away, right? This is one of the more dominant anti-airs in the game, at least at the angles that it's good at. And the conversions you can get from it damage-wise are utterly absurd. Like, some of the best anti-airs in the game, like, you hit them, and you can just, like, kind of walk forward, and you get a little bit of pressure on the person. But you don't just get to delete a giant chunk of their health bar just for getting the anti-air, right? Gill can. Also works much the same here with crouch heavy. You can just go for EX Fireball and do that little combo I showed you from there. Once again, down heavy, it's not as reliable. You're going to have to be a lot earlier on your call out to get it. But still, between down heavy and back heavy, Gill, very difficult to jump against. Now, Gill doesn't have the most amount of ways to open someone up here, but what he does have is an unmoving tick throw, and that is very handy. So what is an unmoving tick throw? So I'm sure you probably know the concept tick throws are like, you know, I'll hit you and I'll walk forward and just try to throw you, right? Well, for Gill, he doesn't got to move. So for stand light kick here, if you do it when you're touching the enemy, you're still at the exact range to get a forward throw. So the enemy is now, after you block that stand light kick, effectively in a situation of I have to immediately guess throw or strike. So obviously if you block it, I can immediately go for a throw. And if you try to, you know, mash tech or something, then this happens. And then you get comboed out from a counter hit combo, right? So, while once again his pressure is not the strongest, just the threat of this is very strong, especially because he can threaten it pretty easily off, you know, any old jump in, go right for that stand light. Now immediately you are in a throw strike mix. And also, if they're prone to, you know, just smashing tech, you can like just walk back a step and try to shimmy out, all that kind of stuff, because it is +3 on block. Yeah, it's not the most overwhelming tool in the world, to be sure, but not many people have unmoving tick throws, so every blocked stand light is just a threat of, okay, now you have to immediately worry about being grabbed or getting counter hit, which is not a very comfortable situation for a lot of people. And for a lot of people too, it might just happen so fast that either the kind of person who mashes techs and you can take advantage of that, or the kind of person who just doesn't even think about teching fast enough, and in which case, just throw them, take your free damage. So, not the ultimate technique in the world to be sure, but it's one you absolutely need to know for Gill. Alright, so now let's talk V-Trigger 2 and V-Trigger 2 traps. Because V-Trigger 2 mix-ups is definitely one of the reasons, if not the reason, you probably picked this one, unless you just think ice is really that much neater than fire. And hey, it is, so I don't blame you on that, right? But let's show you an example of a mix-up here. There's a lot of ways to get into this. There's a lot of routes. This route specifically, we're going to be using the hard knockdown Retribution property given to us by forward heavy punch. And let's just play it out for you here. So the enemy's going to do a combo. Once again, the combo itself, there's a million ways to get into it. It doesn't really matter. We're going to do the forward heavy. And forward heavy, we're going to do the ice trap and then jump over. And hey, so let's do this again here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to crouch block. So I'm now holding down back. And I'm just going to let the setup play out as it is. It's a true hard knockdown, so I can't tech up or anything. And what? How did I get frozen? Well, because I got frozen because it's a cross-up. So if I want to actually block this mix-up, I have to block it the other way. So I actually have to hold currently down forward. And once the jump happens after the trap, now I blocked it, right? Now there's a lot of ways to mess around with this. As this a simple jump forward in the corner. You know what? Jump forward in the corner for like the first, most of the frames looks a lot like just a regular jump, right? And it happens so quick, honestly, you're just gonna kind of have to guess. This is a 50-50 for the most part. There's a way out of it, and I'll talk about it in a second, which has its own thing about it. But yeah, all it is you do a setup. Once again, that's just one route of many possible routes. You do it, and then it's basically, okay, if you jump forward, it's a cross-up. If you neutral jumped, well, it's not a cross-up. And if the enemy guessed wrong either way, you land, and they're frozen. And then from that frozen state, as you can see right there, there's a lot of hits done. You can go right into a stand heavy. and just do whatever you're going to do from there, right? And also, stand heavy combos nicely into light ice in the corner, just so you know. So there's some stuff to play around with that. But yeah, there's so much to work with. And of course, also, as well, with the Retribution, also combos nicely down heavy. And you get more combos. But yeah, so basically, it's a guess wrong, go into stun, because the first combo is already going to do a lot of stun. The next combo is going to do even more stun. And once you're in stun, it's effectively, did you guess wrong? You probably lost a round off this setup, right? So here's the big weakness of the setup. It is a left-right setup, to be sure. It's a true left-right setup, right? But the problem that lies with this is I can just backdash, and I can backdash out. I'll be in airborne frames after the trap goes off, and I get blown up for it. Now, that said, there's still counterplay to the counterplay. So if I know the enemy is going to try to backdash the setup, it's not all doom and gloom, right? So here we are, and now I'm just going to mash backdash here. What's going to happen? Oh, neutral jump, flame kick, hit the Retribution, go from there, right? So once again, the counterplay has counterplay. It's going to be kind of a layers upon layers kind of deal, but if the enemy is smart enough to know they're able to backdash out, then hey, you're smart enough to know neutral jump, which is, you know, part of the 50-50 setup anyways. Neutral jump and a heavy kick, you get to smack them out of the, trying to get out of the setup, works out either way, right? So basically, do the usual setup till they get smart, and then once they get smart, then hey, just add another layer to it. And of course, there's more applications as well than just the 50-50. You can also just do good pressure, right? So example here, basic combo. You can just do it on their wake up and then force them to wake up into, say you want to do an overhead, or if you want to do crouch medium into for a low or something. There's just a lot of ways to make them submit to your pressure as well. And that's just some examples I have to show you. There's probably a lot more that'll be found out in time, including more 50-50s, mid-screen 50-50s. I can guarantee you here one example, actually a mid-screen 50-50. While it doesn't have the most damage, it's still something that'll work. Anytime you have the opponent in the ice state, mid-screen, you go for your sweep, which is once again flame aligned. It'll cause a Retribution, and it's a true hard knockdown. And then basically cancel into your trap, and easy peasy. Alright, there's a jump over, all that kind of stuff. Mid-screen, also you can use the knee drops as well for 50-50s. Where if you're a little close, basically the light will stay same side and the heavy will cross over, and you can use the 50-50 in that way. And once again, that's just off the basic sweep. That's all there is to it, right? And then you combo out. So there's just so much potential. That's why I think V-Trigger 2 in the end is better. Because V-Trigger 1, yeah, you get a little bit of damage, right? But these are game-ending mix-ups, right? Because you're going to take damage and stun from the first setup. You guess wrong, get mixed. The stun from the second part is the combo is going to basically put you in the stun state, and you're probably going to die from there, right? So yeah, V-Trigger 2 is just very, very, very strong. So for our next little tidbit here, this one is basically going to be playing against people's tendencies. Specifically, if they are very prone to quick rise or if they're more prone to back roll. In case you don't know, quick rises get up right away, back rolls to get up moving backwards, and a little bit delayed wake up compared to the quick rise. And this is the setup. So whatever you do, basically, into crouch heavy, into just the basic fireball, right? And if they quick rise, then man, they're in for a pretty nasty surprise. So this in and of itself, you can follow up, but don't follow it up. And what you want to do specifically right afterwards is your heavy knee drop, which will lead to a situation like this, where you're +3, so it's your turn effectively, and you've crossed them up. Now, this is not something you're going to get away with like a million times out of a million, to be sure, right? But it is something to note here. So once again here, just any old crouch heavy into any old fireball, go for your knee drop right away. Your advantage, you're on top of them and you cross them up, from which point just, kind of go into whatever and take advantage of it. Now, if they do the back roll instead, it is not the end of the world, just so you know. So same deal here. And you're still you're still in front of them, you're still directly on top of them, you're in throw range, so don't worry about that, right? But you don't have the guaranteed cross-up, right? So this is something that's going to surprise everyone the first time around, to be sure, right? I'm telling you this because I got hit by this. This is why I know. This is just a cute little gimmick, to be sure, but it's one of those things, especially if, you don't have enough to kill him on the spot here, and you just need one more mix to take the round. This is definitely one of the things that'll definitely steal a round for you. So if you're a fan of Morgan Doom in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, you know, just Soul Fist, Soul Fist, Soul Fist, projectiles all day, well, Gill can't quite one-to-one emulate it, to be sure, but he can do his best. So the building blocks of these are your V-Skill and your slow ice projectile. And it helps to be in V-Trigger 1, although you can be in V-Trigger 2 as well. So normally, obviously, you can't have two projectiles on the screen at the same time, right? And if you have a projectile on screen, you also cannot V-Skill until it's gone, right? But if you're in Trigger, that requirement goes away. So I can do this and go for a V-Skill. So all of a sudden I can go like Ice Ball, V-Skill, Ice Ball, V-Skill, Ice Ball, V-Skill, and just till the cows come home, right? So you can jump over one, land in the other, all that fun stuff. And of course, if you're in V-Trigger 1, you can also mix with your own projectiles, create your own Retribution combo, as you can see there. So yeah, while you can only have one of one projectile in the screen at a time, the V-Trigger lets you just bypass the usual rules, and you can have both a basic projectile and a V-Skill happening at the same time. So creating kind of your own little bullet hell setup. For bigger characters, this can be difficult. Like for your Abigails and your Zangiefs of the world, they're going to struggle to get in on this. Because, you know, they get past Fireball, you can set the V-Skill on yourself and all that kind of stuff, land in it, and it can just be a problem for some characters. Some characters won't care too, right? Bison, with his new V-Skill, he can just teleport behind you and hit you, all that stupid stuff. But just keep in mind, once again, because V-Trigger is so important for Gill, it just lets you bypass the usual requirements, and you're allowed to have a V-Skill and a projectile on the screen at the same time, allowing you to create a deadly maze for the enemy to navigate around. So let's talk about a little bit of corner lockdown and the Ice Ball and its role here, because it's pretty real. So say we're just at this range of stand medium, right? Stand medium into light Ice Ball. What is this? Oh, that's plus 16. You know? Plus 18. Plus 16 again, right? So the Ice Ball being as slow as it is can create situations where you're wildly plus. So like, say we're fishing for the stand medium counter hit combo, right? So, okay, we didn't get it. Crouch medium, cancel the thing. Plus 11 on block, right? So there's so many things at so many ranges where you can just cancel into the ice and just remain plus, and it's just savage. Like, there's not too much more than that, but just, like, pokes into ice is severe lockdown, eventually to the point where the enemy's going to want to get very jumpy, and if you watched earlier in the video, back heavy is the cure-all panacea for people who want to get jumpy on you, because you will take their life and just destroy it, because you get so much damage off that. But yeah, proper spacing with the light Ice Ball, not only will you get your gray health and your chip and all that, but it's just always going to be your turn until they do something drastic about it. Also, if you're in Trigger, obviously the Ice Ball changes in Trigger, right? Something like stand heavy into light Ice Ball, point blank, is still plus on block. It's still plus 1, so at that point, you can just do whatever. And you're still in crouch light punch range too, right? Which is your fastest normal at 3 frames. So if you're fighting another 3-framer and you do something like this, that's guaranteed. There's no button they can hit to beat you short of an invincible reversal, right? So effectively, long story short, as what I'm trying to say is Ice Ball pressure in the corner is your friend. He doesn't really got much, you know, traditional pressure a lot of other characters have. And this is one of his few sources in it. Especially if you're in V-Trigger 2, which ups the ice. In V-Trigger 1, obviously, you're going to have to rely on the regular Ice Balls instead of the turbocharged ones, which are more plus on block. But yeah, Ice Ball pressure in the corner is pretty real. So let's talk about Gill's Oki for a second. It's not the best. Like, there's no Oki after the super, because the super always takes you back to mid-screen, so there's that. The main source of Oki you're going to get, besides, you know, like ice traps and all that we went over earlier in the video, is just stuff off your lariats, right? So the base lariat, no matter where it is plus 18, meaning you can always dash afterwards and still be plus. So if they quick rise, you're plus 2, and if they back roll, so if you lariat them, dash, back roll, you're plus 7, and you're still in range of stand medium, just so you know. Mid-screen, it's not gonna be the best. Obviously, it's a lot better in the corner, but let's just talk mid-screen real quick. So Gill is a character you're gonna really want to watch that tech, see if they're stand teching or back rolling. If they stand tech, you can just do something like stand light. Stand light kick also very good on the stand tech, because it still gives you the unmoving tick grab, which we talked about earlier. You're still in range for that, and just, you know, it'll be faster. You're plus 2 in their face. There's no real button they can hit. From there, you can go from a counter hit combo. On a back roll mid-screen, kind of same deal here. you're at least in range for a stand medium, so I can go like stand medium into a fireball or something. Just basic pressure. It's not too much mid-screen. Now in the corner, so same deal here, you can still dash afterwards, but you can also go for some frame kill setups in the corner. So in the corner, say we'll do our knockdown here with crouch light. We're still plus enough that when the enemy wakes up, we can go into a combo. So say we'll knock him down here, we're going to whiff that crouch light and we'll do a stand light. So what's going to happen is we're going to hit him with an extra meaty stand light. And from that extra meaty stand light, hey, and then you can do all sorts of fun stuff. So we're going to do that setup again here. And hey, how did I combo into that crouch medium? It's because the stand light hits so meaty, we have so much extra frame advantage. I can go right into crouch medium without a counter hit. I can just do it raw. That is the amount of extra frame advantage we have. Now also in the corner, say they're back rolling, we can do stuff like the dash into crouch heavy, and it'll hit on the last active frame basically, and you can do all the usual crouch heavy stuff from there. Also using the whiff crouch light as our timing method for the frame kill, we can do this. And get a super meaty back heavy kick. From there, we can go, say, right into the light medium target combo. And you see, nice little combo there, right? So, he's not an Oki god to a lot of compared to a lot of characters, right? But he's got some stuff. And ending with lariats is going to be how you're going to end, like, pretty much all your combos. So, these are some of the options you have to work with. And there you have it. So I guess that's my little compilation of tips and tricks for Gill. Gill is a complex character. A lot of that complexity comes from the triggers, to be sure. And I'm sure in time there's just going to be a lot of dirty stuff just we could have never dreamed about, right? Like we're already figuring out a lot of stuff with like frost traps and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. He's just going to have a lot of stuff in the future, I'm sure, right? And for now, we got enough stuff to work with, to be sure. But in the future, man, Gill might be a monster. Like, he's just the kind of guy that screams to me, down the road, there's just going to be some smart cookie's going to figure out some really strong tech and it's just going to redefine the way the character's played. Maybe not today. I don't know it anyways. Myself, I'm not sure, right? But I don't know. I think he's a solid enough character and he is really fun. But my friends, I guess that's the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video found you well. Go out and play some Street Fighter.